Hey, this is Dan Bunker with CodeCram, and for this portion of the Spring Boot Microservice course, we'll be creating and running the actual Spring Boot app. Luckily, Spring Boot makes this easy, so I'm going to jump over to a browser and we'll go ahead and get started. The easiest way to create a Spring Boot app is to go to the start.spring.io website. This is a project initializer that will create your Spring Boot app with the dependencies that you specify. At the time that I'm recording this, the current Spring Boot version is version 1.5.10. So all you need to do to create your project is give it a few entries. For the group, I'm going to give it a group ID of com.question, and the artifact is going to be question-service. The only dependency that I'm going to want to pull into this is the web dependency. And the web dependency just brings in Tomcat and Spring MVC, which is our server and API portion of the application. So you've got that selected. Go ahead and click Generate Project, and we've downloaded our question service zip. So I'm simply going to just extract that by clicking on it, and now I'm going to go over to Spring Tool Suite to import the new project. This is the Spring Tool Suite IDE. And it's very easy to import projects that were generated by the Spring Initializer. In the Package Explorer, simply just right-click, go to the Import option. Inside of there, you should have a Maven folder, and you can just say Import Existing Maven Projects. Clicking Next, we can now go browse to where the new project is. So find wherever you extracted your question service code to, open it up, and simply just click on the root of that, and that will import it because it finds the Palm Dot Xml, which is our Maven file. At this point, Spring Tool Suite has imported our newly created project, and now it's ready to use. So really quickly, we have some Java packages located here. Most of the source code is going to be in source main Java. You'll notice that it created a package structure based off of the group and artifact ID I gave it. And then it created an application.java file. This application.java file is where Spring Boot starts off and runs. It contains a public static void main method, which is how you run just plain, pure Java applications. So all this is doing is it's using the annotation to boot up the application and run everything else. The other important file that you'll want to take note of in a new Spring Boot project is the Palm Dot Xml. If you open that up, you can come over to the Palm Dot Xml tab. You can take a look at the contents. In here, specifies some of the information that we provided in the Spring Initializer website. But the most important part is the parent, which specifies our Spring Boot version, and the dependencies. When I created the project, I opted to bring in the Spring Boot Starter Web, which contains Spring MVC and the embedded Tomcat server. Test dependency was added by default as well, and that's pretty much all you need to start and run an application. To run this application, I can simply click on the application.java file, go down to run as Spring Boot app or Java application. Either one should work fine. If this is the first time you're running it, still may need to pull in some dependencies and do some indexing. Once that's done, the console should display that your application's running. I can double click on the console tab to make that a little bit bigger. You'll notice that we have the Spring banner printed out, and we're using version 1.5.10, which is the current version at this time. And finally, down here at the bottom of the console, you'll see that it reports that Tomcat is started on port 8080. So at this point, we can go to that in a browser and see if our app is responding. In the browser URL bar, if I type in localhost :8080, you'll see that we get an error page. It says this white label error page. You might think that the app isn't working, but actually the app is working just fine. We're getting a 404 because we haven't defined any API endpoints or any kind of web pages or anything that the server can respond to. So the fact that we got an error page from Spring Boot means that we've created the app and it's up and running correctly. That's it for this portion of the course. Coming up next, we'll build the actual API microservice and we will wrap things up.